Andrew McGahon here at the UFC Ultimate Media Day for UFC 205 this weekend in New York. An interview 3, 4, maybe even 5 years in the making here.
Wow.
Standing alongside Ariel Helwani, the man who pretty much got me in front of a camera to begin with.
Wow, how about that?
This is a pleasure.
Andrew, how are you?
Not too bad, how are you?
Well, I always said that I would only interview with you until you got to the MacLife.com, because as
The
we all
highest
know,
stage, is it?
if you're not Macking, you're not stacking. So you got there, and now here we are.
You're waiting for t-shirts all over the place. Yeah,
Well,
I think they're
I've
going to be
been-
throwing them at you.
I've been promised t-shirts, I've been promised contracts, I've been promised, a boatload of things. Thus far, all I've gotten is an interview with you, and quite frankly, that's more than I need. Congratulations on the new gig, my man.
Thank you very much. Talk to me about this weekend. For you personally, a guy who lives in New York, what
Yes.
does it mean to you for the UFC to finally be here?
Well, not only does it mean the world to be covering an event here at Madison Square Garden in New York City. I love the fact that I don't have to get on a plane selfishly and travel to an event. I'm also a gigantic New York Knicks fan, and just being in this arena where the Knicks play and getting to see, I've been to the arena as a fan, but just as a media member and being in the media room and being in the arena when it's empty is just an absolute thrill. So yeah, I feel like I'm on cloud nine. Some of the events just sort of bleed into each other. This one feels special, and it's nice to have that feeling.
Do you think that the early worries about this card maybe not living up to the hype, and then out of nowhere 3 title fights just appeared on the card, and fights that everyone was looking forward to also appeared on the card? Do you think that there was a chance that the UFC were going to understack this event in any way?
Well, with all due respect to all the fighters on the card, because it is a fantastic card, and I'm not just saying this because I'm talking to you, if they didn't get Conor on the card, it wouldn't have felt special. They needed to get either Conor or Ronda Rousey, and it was clear that Ronda wasn't going to be ready. They had to get Conor, and it had to be against Eddie Alvarez, in my opinion. It had to be historic, because we were told from the get-go that whenever they make their debut here at MSG, it's going to be a UFC 100-like card, and for a very long time, it did not feel like a UFC 100-like card. Now it's an even better one, and if it would have been the 2 title fights, that would have been fine, but there's tons of fight cards with 2 titles on it. I mean, that's not special. 3 title fights is special. Champion versus champion is special. A chance to make history and be the first guy to have 2 belts at the same time in 2 different weight classes, that's special. So now you kind of look at the rest of the card in a whole different light. Now you're like excited about the Misha fight and the Chris Weidman fight, all these other fights. So they had to do it, they did it. I think the fans are very happy about that.
Do you think that people in any way are underplaying the fact that Conor wants to hold 2 championships? He seems to be the only one, in my opinion, that's kind of pushing that narrative, pushing that angle, saying that no one has ever come close to it, no one has really done it before. Or is this me looking at it from an Irish perspective? What's it like over here? Are people actually coming onto that?
No, I think we're talking about it a lot, to be honest. I think we recognize, look, at the end of the day, this sport is on Saturday, it's going to celebrate its 23rd birthday. UFC 1 was November 12, 1993. So it's not like we're talking about an organization that's been around for 75 years or something like that. And let's be honest, not a lot of people have had the opportunity to do what Conor is doing. Jose Aldo talked about going up to 155 when he was the featherweight champion. Anthony Pettis talked about going down to 145 when he was the lightweight champion. This has been discussed. The UFC at the end of the day has to open the door for you. Conor is such a big draw that he gets to call his shots, and he's put himself in this position to make this happen, and he deserves it. He deserves the opportunity, in my opinion. So I think that's kind of coming into play here. I think there was a little controversy about, Khabib Nurmagomedov and, Conor and Aldo and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, I think people are excited about potentially seeing history, and I think they're excited about the fact that, Conor, in the span of 12 months, is going to fight 4 times. That's why I feel like this talk of him dropping the belt is ludicrous, dropping one of the belts. He is more active as a dual champion than most, singular champions are, right? I mean, if he defends the featherweight or lightweight belt, if he wins on Saturday twice next year, that's just as active as any other champion. So I don't understand why he has to drop one of the belts. And when you have the biggest draw and you can clone him and put him in 2 divisions, why wouldn't you do that? Now you have the biggest draw in 2 weight classes. So to me, it makes perfect business sense to push him in this direction. If he wins, keep him champion of both weight classes. Why wouldn't you?
There seems to be a bit of a narrative, even whether it's between Dana or the UFC, the media and Conor, that they seemed keen to take the belt off. It seemed like they wanted to take a title off him after this. Then that talk sort of cooled. Do you think that there's been stuff being said behind the scenes more so than anything, that's Conor is saying, look, I will get myself back down to 145 pounds. I do want to keep these, because a lot of us, he's had his Twitter picture, the same thing since Boston, 2 titles aloft. to me and a lot of other people included, we thought he just wanted to have both titles and then he would move to 155 full time. But it seems in the last couple of weeks the 45 question isn't solved completely. He seems keen to go back down.
Well, I mean, honestly, I never believed that he was going to drop any of them because, or at least one of them, because this is a guy who likes to make history and he wants to be unique. He wants to be known as someone who is doing something that no one else has done before. And with that in mind, that's defending both belts, 3-4 months apart. So Dana White came out and said he's going to drop one after, and then he says it's going to take an army. I mean, it doesn't get much more clear than that, in my opinion. And he continues to say that. And even John Kavanaugh told me, earlier this week that it's not going to happen. So I don't expect him to, and I don't think he should, to be honest.
Okay, you've probably done more interviews than the fighters here today. So 2 final things, I promise. This is the highest gate already in Madison Square Garden history. Do you expect if it all goes to plan, it's a stellar event, everybody's going wild? The UFC, is there a chance that Vegas doesn't become the hub of operations in 2017 under new owners somewhere else in the West Coast? Can New York, is it a viable option? Because to me this market seems ideal for Conor McGregor or European sort of based fights to get guys over to the States.
It is ideal, but I don't think they're going to turn their back on Vegas. They're still based in Las Vegas, and also the insurances here are so high. There's a lot of politics here as well. So I think that they are going to come here a couple times a year. And they're going to come to New York State. They say they're going to come 3-4 times a year, and they're going to Albany in December. But I don't think it's very cheap for the UFC to run events in Las Vegas. And I think with these new owners trying to make as much money as possible, they're not going to turn their back. Witness the fact that Ronda Rousey is fighting in Las Vegas.
Exactly. And then the pipe dream for Irish fans. I know you're as linked to the Irish fans as you are to the American fans. Conor McGregor becomes a 2-way world champion, and whatever, maybe pay-per-view doesn't matter, this doesn't matter, that doesn't matter. Do you ever think there is a possibility that Conor could defend one of those belts in Croke Park? Because I am always interested to hear your take on this, because maybe you've heard stuff behind the scenes, you've heard stuff from the UFC, but we were always told the pay-per-view, the time difference, this and that. But as Conor has continued to prove people wrong, and people that say this couldn't be done, he does it. What is to say that he couldn't bring the UFC back to Croke Park for a pay-per-view?
Well, you took the answer right out of my mouth. I mean, he has made a living, especially while in the UFC, of proving us wrong. Every step of the way, right? Every single step of the way, including this step, which was they're not going to let him fight, for another belt while he's still the champion. Every step of the way. So who the hell am I to say that he's not going to get it done in Croke Park? Already, we've solved the riddle of doing an event in Europe that caters to the North American crowd. UFC 204, they did it at 4 a.m. Local time. It sold out in 6 minutes, and it was fine on pay-per-view here. Now, I know there's the curfew issue at Croke Park and all that. He's freaking Conor McGregor. In my opinion, as a North American, he's the most famous Irishman in the world. Now, I know the Irish fans will tell me Rory McIlroy and this guy Roy Keane, Robbie Keane. Conor McGregor is the most famous Irishman in the world. I think it would be foolish for the Irish government not to bend a little backwards for him and not bring that kind of revenue into Ireland. So I'm not doubting him, and I don't think it's a crazy thought to think that he could do it next year.
Ariel Helwani, thank you very much.
Andrew McGahon here. He's come a long way. Again, congratulations, my man. Appreciate the time.
Thank you very much. See you soon.